a dog of Flanders. One day, after 2 years of this long and deadly agony, Patrashe was going on as usual along one of the straight, dusty, and lovely roads that lead to the city of Louvain. It was full of midsummer and very warm. His cart was very heavy, piled high with goods in metal and in earthenware. His owner sauntered on without noticing him otherwise than by the crack of the whip, as it cooled round his quivering loins. The Brabantois had forced to drink beer himself at every wayside house, but he had forbidden Patrashe to stop a moment for a draught from the channel. Going along thus, in the full sun, on a scorching highway, having eaten nothing for 24 hours, and which was far worse to him, not having tasted water for near 12, being blind with dust, sore with blood, and stupefied with the merciless weight which dragged upon his loins. Patrashe stretched and foamed a little at the mouth and fell. He fell in the middle of the wide, dusty road in the full glare of the sun. He was sick unto death and motionless. His master gave him the only medicine in his pharmacy, kicks and oaths and blows, with a cudgel of oak, which had been often the only food and drink, the only wage and reward ever offered to him. But Patrashe was beyond the reach of any torture or of any curses. Patrashe lay, to all appearances, drowned in the white powder of the summer dust. After a while, finding it useless to assail his ribs with punishment and his ears with maledictions, the Brabantois, deeming life gone in him, or going so nearly that his carcass was forever useless, unless indeed someone should strip it to the skin for the gloves, cursed him fiercely in farewell, struck off the leathern bands of the harness, kicked his body aside into the grass, and, groaning and muttering in savage wrath, pushed the cart lazily along the road uphill, and left the dying dog for the ants to sting and for the crowds to pick. It was the last day before Kermesse away at Louvain, and the Brabantois was in haste to reach the fair and get a good place for his stock of brass wares. He was in fierce wrath, because Patrashe had been a strong and much enduring animal, and because he himself had now the hard task of pushing his chariot all the way to Louvain. But to stay to look after Patrashe never entered his thoughts. The beast was dying and useless, but he would steal to replace him the first large dog that he found wandering along out of sight of its master. Patrashe had cost him nothing or next to nothing, and for 2 long cruel years had made him toil ceaselessly in his service, from sunrise to sunset, through summer and winter, in fair weather and foul. He had got a fair use and a good profit out of Patrashe. Being human, he was wise, and left the dog to draw his last breath along in the ditch, and have his bloodshot eyes plucked out, as they might be by the birds, whereas he himself went his way, to beg and to steal, to eat and to drink, to dance and to sing, in the mirth at Louvain. A dying dog, a dog of the cart, why should he waste hours over its agonies, at peril of losing handful of copper coins, at peril of a shout of laughter? Patrashe lay there, fluttering in the grass-green ditch. It was a busy road that day, and hundreds of people, on foot and on mules, in wagons or in carts, went by, tramping quickly and joyously on the Louvain. Some saw him. Most didn't even look. All passed on. A dead dog, more or less, it was nothing in Brabant. It would be nothing anywhere in the world. After a time, among the holiday-makers, there came a little old man who was bent and lame and very feeble. He was in no guise for feasting. He was very poorly and miserably clad, and he dragged his silent way slowly through the dust among the pleasure-seekers. He looked at Patrashe, paused, wondered, turned aside, then kneeled down in the rank grass and weeds of the ditch, and surveyed the dog with kindly eyes of pity. There was with him a little rosy, fair-haired, dark-eyed child of a few years old, who pattered in amidst the bushes for him breast high, and stood gazing with a pretty seriousness upon the poor, great, quiet beast. Thus, it was that these two first met, the little Nero and the big Patrashe. The upshot of that day was that old Jehan Daas, with much laborious effort, drew the sufferer homeward to his own little hut, which was a stone's throw off amidst the fields, and there tended him with so much care that the sickness, which had been a brain seizure brought on by heat and thirst and exhaustion, with time and shade and rest passed away, and health and strength returned, and Patrashe staggered up again upon his four stout, tawny legs. Now, for many weeks, he had been useless, powerless, sore, near to death. But all this time, he had heard no rough word, had felt no harsh touch, but only the pitying murmurs of the child's voice and the soothing caress of the old man's hand. In this sickness, they too had grown to care for him, this lonely man and the little happy child. He had the corner of the hut, with a heap of dry grass for his bed, and they had learned to listen eagerly for his breathing in the dark night, to tell them that he lived. And when he first was well enough to essay a loud, hollow, broken bay, they laughed aloud and almost wept together for joy at such a sign of his sure restoration. And little Nero, in delighted glee, hung round his rugged neck with chains of margarites, and kissed him with fresh and ruddy lips. So then, when Patrashe arose himself again, strong, big, gaunt, powerful, his great wistful eyes had a gentle astonishment in them, that there were no curses to rouse him, and no blows to drive him, and his heart awakened to a mighty love, which never wavered once in its fidelity, whereas life abode with him. But Patrashe, being a dog, was grateful. Patrashe lay pondering long, with grave, tender, musing brown eyes, watching the movements of his friends.